Hello again, YouTube. My name is Bree, and in today's video, we have the final, for now, entry in my palette tour series where I am finally using my gigantic Daniel Smith palette. This was intended to be my studio palette. I don't use it because it's too big. So yeah, all the ones that have like a piece of tape on it, that's a reminder to not use it for this video because those are not Daniel Smith. So I marked all the ones that were anything else, which wasn't that many. This palette came into being because I only had my Schmincke palette at this point, and I wanted to make a travel palette. I had a little thing to put paints into, but I needed 2 paints to do it. And at this point, I still wasn't studied enough to understand, color mixing. So I could not figure out, I could just bring, 12 half pans. I'm like, I need a small thing that carries tons of paint. So I went and treated myself to a bunch of Daniel Smith tubes at Blick. My brother was quite insulted that he found out I went to his wedding early so I could go to Blick because there's no Blick by me. It was a very exciting trip, and he did not find amusement in that. But you know what? He was getting ready to be married or whatever anyway, so whatever, dude. Yeah, and I got my paints. It was very exciting, but looking back on it, I made some choices that were not wise. I think some of it was based on I had paint from other brands. Like I had a couple core tubes and a couple, maybe that was it. I think I had a couple Winsor Newton tubes as well. So those could supplement what I didn't have, but literally took until like sometime last year for me to buy a single tube of a paint that was a cool yellow because I didn't own a single tube of cool yellow. Somehow did not understand color mixing all this time. So yeah, this palette was then my studio version of my little travel palette, and like I said, it's just too big. Yeah, mistakes were made. So for this video, I wanted to do something a little bit more spring oriented, and also I had a hard mix. I was looking for a reference photo that was springish but also like didn't feature a lot of like yellows because I don't have like many yellows in here. I have ones I couldn't use because they're from another brand, like I think I have New Gamboge, and then it's just a lot of warm yellows, so I couldn't mix warmer greens. So I just kind of went with what I have, and a lot of these greens, I think this is what made me not like using greens much, is because until I started mixing my own, I didn't realize how like unnatural a lot of greens are. Like a lot of green paints are in colors that are either too vibrant or too cool to really hit those natural scenes that I thought they would be good for. Lesson learned many years later. So I have a lot of greens in this palette that don't lend to a very natural looking scene. So in this particular one, this was a lot of those greens were more blue tinted, so it actually fit pretty well. And then I immediately start with the wash because I was like, you're not going to enjoy doing the background, just start with the wash, build up from there. Man, she looks a little creepy at this point in the painting. But I painted over all the things that were supposed to be flowers. So that was dumb. And then I had a little bit of white. I think it was actually Holbein white gouache that was in this palette. So I tried to use this. I've been using the Knicker poster color for highlights in all the other palette tour videos. And I think it was just so old that it did not want to like reactivate nicely and come out opaque. And it's not very much anyway. So I went back to the Knicker eventually. But yeah, I lost all of my little flowers that were supposed to be in the foreground and some of those that she's holding because I was not paying attention. That's a lesson. So I had it all planned out and then I just painted right over it. I also struggled a bit with the skin tones, and once again that really was the yellows. I was using yellow ochre, which I used to use a lot for kind of a base skin, and I've gotten really comfortable using instead like something really punchy, like a quinacridone gold, just something that has a lot more yellow. So when I tried to go to the yellow ochre again, the difference in both opacity and saturation definitely I had to adjust to. So I struggled a bit there. not that there's anything wrong with this palette or these paints. It just, I've grown out of the habit of using them, so that was on me. And then, like I said, I made some stupid mistakes early on, and then I like flailed a bit because brain stops working when I make mistakes. I also, once again, had to remind myself, you don't like painting this tiny on camera. And as I struggle with the face, because, you can't really see too well sometimes. Not with those little tiny details. It's just easier to be like right on top of it when painting those. Yeah, and in general, I don't paint a lot of fabrics in a way that like I was not really comfortable with that. And then I got to the plants and I'm like, I don't know how to paint plants. So I struggled there too. Overall, I can't say I'm unhappy with this. It's just I hit so many like little roadblocks along the way because I did not plan. So I just forgot what I was doing, I guess. But yeah, I feel that this is an appropriately spring themed video, and considering I basically did 3 videos in 3 weeks, I'm proud of myself. If you're counting and there's only 2 videos, that's because I messed up one of the videos, and that's why I had the makeup video last week, because I had my camera settings wrong and the quality was abysmal. So 3 videos in 3 weeks, but only 2 of them made it to production. Oh well. So yeah, the star color here is absolutely quinacridone rose. I don't use it a lot because it is a very strong color, and I technically the tube itself that I have, I've run out of. So later palettes I've built, little travel palettes, I don't use it because I don't have it anymore. And I have enough cool pinks that I don't feel like I can justify reordering it. So yeah, I just completely forgot how absolutely stunning it is, and that's probably my favorite paint in this palette right now. The ones that surprised me, let's start with the ones that didn't surprise me. Ultramarine is such a go-to color for me, and I don't like Daniel Smith's ultramarine. It just dries like a rock, and it doesn't reactivate as easily as most ultramarines do, and I find it to be such a disappointment on a palette. It's still a lovely color, it just has that slight bit of extra effort that I don't feel it should have, because no other ultramarine blue seems to dry like that. It honestly dries like a lot of their Primatech line, and at least those I have an understanding of why they dry down like a rock, because they're actually rocks. So they get a pass, but it's just weird to have to throw so much water on ultramarine to get it to be usable. I always have loved Piemontite Genuine, which is one of the Primatech ones. It does dry down like a rock, not quite as bad as the ultramarine, but still quite severely. And I tried to use it in here, but I think where it really shines is when you're using it in larger washes, because then it gets this beautiful granulations and you see like the browns, but also some reds peek through. So it's really fun to use for more, I guess, structural type stuff, painting buildings, and also like in forest. And I didn't really get to let it shine here. I used some of it in the hair and like the eyes and stuff. I also have I used a lot of what's in here, but there's a lot of, or I'm not saying, I didn't use a lot. I tried to use more colors than I normally would just to explore the palette a bit more, but there's a lot I didn't even touch. Some notable ones being the entire collection of darks I have. So this palette has, I think, 5 Daniel Smith darks. It has Sodalite Genuine, Payne's Blue Gray, Payne's Gray, Neutral Tint, and Moon Glow, and I didn't use any of them because the scene didn't really call for it. It does feel weird to, like, looking back, I bought Moon Glow because it was such a hype color, and it's not a color I use, so I probably should get that tube to someone else so they could use it, because I don't make enough use of it, and I feel bad because I know a lot of people do love it. I also have a lot of really dark browns. I don't use Burnt Tiger's Eye Genuine, is another one that dries like a rock, and it does have a very rich mass tone, but it works so much better if you use it from the tube. If you use it as a dried pan, it's just so much effort to get it there. It has beautiful granulation, but it's not really great as a dried pan. So I didn't use that one, and then sepia as well. So I have a lot of colors in the dark range I didn't touch. I also don't like their Indanthrone blue, so I didn't really use it here. It is one of my favorite blues, especially on the like Schmincke side, but theirs is more desaturated, so I don't love it as much. I also forgot, I guess I didn't forget, I don't really like cerulean. And I think that's kind of a any brand situation. It's just not a favorite of mine, and I tried to use it here. It just feels weird to me. It muddies up so quickly, and I feel like if you're using it for just that color, it's fine, but it doesn't work for me in mixes. I don't know, I don't get along with it. The lavender is there, I don't use it. Pains or phthalo blue red shades on this palette, and I just don't use it for some reason. So it's really just ultramarine of all those blues. Their phthalo turquoise is actually not the single pigment variety. It's not my favorite version. And then I have all those greens, and of the greens, my favorite's jadeite, which is another one, the genuine line, and that one actually reactivates really easily, and there's a beautiful green with some brown underneath it. That very cool green. But yeah, too many cool greens. So yeah, I talked the whole time about what's on the palette and didn't talk much about the painting, but that's okay. Sorry that it switched from warm to cool so quickly. I actually filmed the paint peel the next morning. The sun had already come up, and the video warms up by the end anyway, so I couldn't balance it. But yeah, I just kept this one real simple because I would overanalyze it if I kept going too much longer. And I was tired, clearly. So yeah, no shade to Daniel Smith. It's a great brand. It's just some of my favorite pigments don't work for me in the same way. If I made a mixed palette again, I would definitely use that quinacridone rose if I had it. And a cup like the Piemontite I have to use. But otherwise, I just prefer other brands, and that's okay. But yeah, otherwise, that's all I've got for this week. I will be back with a haul video in a couple weeks, which I feel very guilty about because I should not be buying more stuff, but it's too late. It happened. Otherwise, hope you're doing well, taking care of yourselves, and I hope to see you in a future video. Bye.